So why is the market reacting so bad to Intel's newly released earnings report? We can see that the stock is tanking at minus 8%. Well, in my opinion, there's a couple of reasons why the stock is reacting this way. So you can see that the reported revenue number is at the higher end of the guidance which they gave 3 months ago. Also, the gross margin is quite a bit better, and the EPS is also better. Not only better than the guideline, but also you can see that the year-on-year numbers is quite good. 260% increase year-on-year on the EPS, and the gross margin is up 5 points. So the issue is not the actual, in my opinion, the actual numbers of Q4. So let's have a look at the outlook for Q1 of next year. Could the issue be there? But maybe I think that's also part of the issue here. You can clearly see that it's quite a weak Q1 earnings report, which they gave the guidance for 12 billion to 13 billion, and then the gross margin is supposed to go down quite a bit, and then the EPS quite a bit compared to Q4. But in my opinion, this doesn't explain the entire story. So if we go and have a look at segment by segment, so you can see that the client computing came in at 8.8 billion with a really healthy margin compared to the last Q4, equivalent Q4 of last year. And this is really interesting because if you have a look at the graph on the client computing, you can see that the trend from Q4 2021 and then ever so on, we can see that it's been going down, and it kind of bottomed in Q1 of last year and then kind of rebounding again lately in the last 3 quarters. And also on the operating income, you can see that last quarter we had 2.05 billion, and this quarter we had 2.9 billion. So basically 50% increase quarter on quarter. Now the issue here is the data center, obviously, because again, we can see that we lost 10 billion revenue year on year, and the margin is just going basically to break even at this point. So looking at the same graph on data center, you can see the clear trend here that not only are they losing revenue, but also losing operating income quite quickly. And this is not painting a great picture, especially compared to AMD. We know that AMD is really strong in this data center segment. And also, although let's say the AI data center part of this whole segment hasn't been the greatest contribution to Intel's past greatness, I'm thinking about how much of the AI GPU side has contributed to these numbers, which is in Intel's case basically not a lot. But so that's not where they're losing. So they are not losing market share to Nvidia, in my opinion. They are losing market share to AMD. And one way to defend themselves is basically, if they are losing market share, at least they're gonna make life hard for AMD. And this is where you see the margins basically going really, really bad, because they are reducing their average sales price, because no one is gonna pay premium for Intel servers when they can buy a better AMD one, which has better efficiency, much more mature nodes and more cores, so you get more performance, less energy consumption. So yeah, that's why I think you can see these margins eroding for Intel, and this is where I think the problem starts. So not only is the guidance of Q1 next year very low, but also the data center is not painting a great picture. And if Intel is so confidently talking about all these 5 nodes in 4 years, as you can see here, so they're reestablishing technology leadership. And why aren't we seeing the fruits of this leadership? So this bears the question of maybe they are basically over exaggerating about how well this process is going. Now, for things to look forward to, at least in my opinion, is not network and edge in that case, because it's still, you can see it's also going down quite a bit, and again break even, not making a lot of money. In my opinion, the biggest important here is Intel Foundry Services, because if they manage to execute better on those, let's say, visions of 5 nodes in 4 years, then this part here, this IFS, which they just recently started a separate segment, I think this one will challenge TSMC to some degree. I don't see TSMC losing their market leadership at any, let's say, in the closest 5 years, unless any geopolitical issue happens with China and Taiwan. But outside that geopolitical risk, I don't see Intel taking over TSMC, but you could definitely see this one grow into the billions in, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years. So you should follow this, and you can see that the revenue increased 63% year on year, and yeah, this is a good sign, although in absolute numbers it's still only from just below 200 to just below 300 million. And to summarize, we know that AMD also has their own earnings report next week. I think it's on Tuesday, and this is where Intel can really go from bad to worse, because AMD, I think, if they give a good guidance on the, let's say, the AI data center for their MI300 chips, which I do believe is highly possible. I think Lisa Su is sandbagging. You can see my last video up on to the left that that Lisa Su, in my opinion, is kind of sandbagging, and I think AMD is gonna have a great year for the MI300 data center chips. And if that happens, and if they give a really good guidance, and also let's say guidance for Q1 and the entire 2024, I think this whole AMD earnings report next week will also basically put another dagger into Intel, and maybe even push the stock even further down, because then we can see that how is it possible that AMD and Nvidia are able to grow their revenue so much in this market, whereas Intel is basically, as you can see, bleeding, especially on the data center. So that's the question, and I think that's why the market reacted this way to Intel. And we can see we are still down. Yeah, now it's even worse. Now it's minus 9%. So I think people are seeing this, and until Intel shows any improvement on their IFS and on the like 5 nodes in 4 years process leadership, which they talk about a lot of times in the past couple of years. You can see here as well the execution and the timeline and for the products coming on. And we all know that I've spoken in my previous videos that I don't expect, like, Emerald Rapids on Intel 7 is a good product, but it's not competitive with AMD. Neither is Meteor Lake. Meteor Lake is good, but it's not going to compete against AMD's newly launched products for this 2024. Sierra Forest and Grand Rapids. Sierra Forest is the very extremely many cores server CPU with 288 cores, which will fight against AMD's equivalent, which probably is going to be up to 192 cores. And Grand Rapids will be fewer cores but faster cores. And again, these are a good improvement upon Intel's, let's say, 2021 and 2022 lineup in server compared to AMD, but this will not take the leadership again. And then Arrow Lake is maybe Arrow Lake will take the leadership, but I expect great things from Zen 5 from AMD. So even there, this doesn't like give enough confidence for me. And then also the lack of discussions about their AI GPUs for let's say the inference market, which we have Nvidia's H100 and AMD's MI300. So I think combined, the lack of execution, at least let's say perfect execution, which they needed. Obviously, if you say you're gonna have 5 new nodes in 4 years, then you basically need to put not one miracle but basically 3-4 miracles out of your hat. So there's that. The guidance for Q1 next year, or sorry, Q1 this year was quite low as well. We can see here, 12 billion, lower gross margin. And as I mentioned, the continuous trend of the data center going down. Intel's data center going down, and you can see that AMD is plateauing, but I think 2024 will definitely push them upwards. So yeah, sorry, but I think maybe the stock had been going up quite a bit in the last year, and maybe this was a wake-up call. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.